to have John Patrick Carney, candidate for the Auditor of State.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And first, I'd like to acknowledge my friend and colleague, Representative Boyd, who, to my understanding, had a hand in putting this organization together. She and I work very closely together on the Health Committee in the Ohio House on a number of issues to include Medicaid expansion. I grew up here in Cleveland on the west side as part of my family's dozen children and learned a few lessons being in a family with a dozen children. As a result of having 9 sisters, the first lesson I learned was to respect women, and that's why I'm alive and with you all today, as I learned that lesson early on. Now, despite the fact that my parents had 12 kids, they still delivered Meals on Wheels. They still organize days for the senior citizens in our community, and I can remember my mom saying to us, we're all so lucky because we have so many people in our family to look out for us. It's our job to look out for people in our community who have no one at all. And my neighbor had been widowed. He had polio when he was growing up, so he was in a wheelchair. And it was my job and my brother's job to go over to his house every day and help him get up out of bed and help him do chores around the house. And that's just the sort of stuff you did if you were part of the Carney family. Now, when I was in 2nd grade, my parents told me, look, John, we're not going to be able to afford to send you to college, so you need to get a job. And when I was 8, I literally started carrying the plain dealer. I got paid $1 a day by my brother. He was very generous. And as a result of a lot of odds and ends jobs and bussing tables and washing dishes, I managed to save over $10,000. And between the scholarships I got from Ohio State University and the money I saved, I put myself through college and law school. And when I came out, I became a healthcare attorney. For the last 13 years, I've been putting doctors' practices together all across the country. And a half dozen years ago, I thought, you know, evidence-based ideas would create bipartisanship in the legislature, and I know quite a bit about healthcare. I should run and try to improve the lot in life for a lot of folks. And so, over 90% of the bills while I've been in the legislature have had broad bipartisan support. And I think that it's about time that your government start working for you instead of just working on partisan initiatives. We need to get work done for people in your community instead of continuing to argue and bicker. I see my time's up, so I look forward to talking about the substance of the office as we move along here.
Good morning, Mr. Carney.
Good morning.
If the lottery revenues are hurt by casino gambling, what measures will you take to shore up the lottery and ensure cities and townships and such receive local aid funds?
Sure. So my job as state auditor is to pull the curtains back and show you what's happening with your resources. And unfortunately, whether it's lottery funds or your local government funds, or funds that should be supporting schools right now, it looks more and more like the biggest campaign contributors to the folks in elected office get the greatest benefit, and the taxpayers are just being left behind. And let me give you a perfect example. You've got a situation where the very worst charter schools in the state are getting $600 more per student in this budget, and the very best have taken a cut. And the only way to understand it is to look and see the biggest campaign contributors to the Republicans in office happen to be the worst charter school operators in the state of Ohio. And so instead of investing in the children in your community and giving them an excellent education and excellent opportunity, the folks in elected office are more worried about rewarding contributors than they are looking out for you. And there's a shell game happening, whether it's with lottery funds or local government funds, that aren't supporting your community and the people in your community. And as auditor, I pledge to work for you and not political bosses or contributors to pull back the curtains and show you exactly what is happening with your money and the fact that a lot of it's leaving your community and not coming back to support you and your neighbors.
Second question. What has been the most influential experience that you've had in your lifetime? And how did it help you develop?
Sure. So for me, I grew up in a middle-class family here in Cleveland. My dad worked for Republic Steel. If it wasn't for decent pay and benefits for a guy who never got a college degree, and a great public school down the street where, regardless of whether you were rich or poor, the teacher cared about you and cared about investing in your future, I wouldn't be where I'm at. And what's so discouraging to me right now is that here in the state of Ohio, instead of investing in opportunity for everyone, regardless of whether you're rich or poor, our government has become about rewarding campaign contributors, rewarding the wealthy, instead of looking out for average folks who looked a lot like I did when I was a little kid. And I think that the folks in office should be looking out for all of us. You all pay taxes and pay the salaries of the folks in office. They should be looking out for you. And it's very discouraging that opportunity and the American way of life for many of us, where we achieve because we invested in each other, is going away because we've got folks in office who are more worried about getting reelected than they are doing the job of standing up for citizens. And so for me, the most foundational experience for me was the fact that despite the fact my parents didn't have a lot of money, I still was able to get a great education, still be successful, and I think that should still be the way it is here in the United States of America, and that's what I'm going to fight for in office.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me. I will tell you that unfortunately our experience with the current auditor has not been a good one for you. Jobs Ohio is getting hundreds of millions of your money. It's supposed to be creating jobs in your community here. And the auditor said that he would run a financial audit to show us what's happening with your money, and then he didn't run a financial audit. He said he wanted state government to work, and then he gerrymandered legislative districts to ensure that the most partisan people would get reelected, and those who are bipartisan are most in danger of losing their elections. He stood up and said, we need to look out for great schools and great education, and then while your elected leaders siphon more and more money off to go to the absolute worst schools and cut the best ones, he stood idly by and didn't do anything about it. It's about time that we have people in office who stand up for the people of the state and your community. You deserve Jobs Ohio money to come to your community to create jobs for people who live here. You deserve to have excellent schools for the children that live in this community so they too can achieve their American dream just like I did and so many others did. You deserve to know that your state government is working for you and looking out for your best interests, and not that you've got campaign contributors driving the bus in state government. I promise to work for the people and not political bosses and stand up for you, the taxpayers here in the state. I'm John Patrick Carney. Thank you so much. I hope I'll have your vote.